And you just like hear someone saying help, like real softly. You're like, what the f is going on? You turn the lights on, no one's there.
Now, there's also another interesting theory called the quantum consciousness theory, and it suggests that consciousness is not just a product of brain activity, but may be a fundamental part of the universe, existing at a subatomic level. This idea has been explored by physicists like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, who proposed that consciousness arises from quantum processes inside the brain's neurons. Now, if consciousness exists on a quantum level, it might linger or even interact with reality after death in ways that align with ghostly experiences. Some hauntings might be the result of lingering quantum energy left behind after a person dies. If memories and consciousness proceed quantum level, they might become stuck at certain locations, replaying events like a recording, similar to the tape theory, but with physics as the explanation.
The other thing that makes me uncomfortable as I get older is I realize that there probably has to be evil in order for good to exist. That there's some weird, with human beings, there's some very weird balance of good and evil. And it's just like you don't appreciate sunshine unless it rains. I think we need a balance, and unfortunately, one of the things that creates more good is evil, because someone has to combat that good or combat that evil. And the way you combat that evil is become a better person, become great, become something special.
I like it.
So much evidence of it. If you look at human beings, there's never been a time where there haven't been evil people.
Yeah,
ever.
correct. No, correct.
There's not like one society where everybody figured it out and everybody was cool.
Yeah, correct.
And if they are, it lasts like a couple years and then it falls apart.
The Joe Rogan Experience number 2243, featuring Julian Lennon. In this episode, Julian Lennon talks to Joe about how there have been many things in his life that he has experienced that are unexplainable. He first talks about white feather. While Julian Lennon was in Australia, he was given a white feather by an Aboriginal tribal elder. Now, the most bizarre part about that is that Julian's father, John Lennon, once told him that if he ever passed away, he would send Julian a message in the form of a white feather. So Julian receiving this white feather a few years after his dad passed away inspired Julian to start the White Feather Foundation and dedicate his efforts to making a positive impact on the world. Now, Joe Rogan says that the white feather is so on the nose that it is almost impossible to dismiss, leading him to talk about the concept of the divine or the concept of being something else. This prompts Julian Lennon to tell a story of how he saw something completely unexplainable while he was in Mexico. Take a listen.
And I had this experience where I saw quite clearly. I was on my own again, of course, and I was looking out to the sea. This was down in Mexico, and I was literally just kind of drifting off, and I, without question, at least I believe so, I saw, to me, what looked like Mayan Indians, see-through, dancing around a fire. And I went, what the? I mean, I really kind of got a little scared. I went, what am I seeing? How am I seeing this? Why? Anyway, it was all a bit weird. And at the breakfast table the next day, and I'd never been to this place before, I was invited down as a guest, and the hostess said, how did you sleep? Is everything all right? I said, well, I don't want to say anything, but I think I saw some see-through Mayan Indians last night. Oh, you didn't know that this was built on a Mayan Indian burial ground? I said, shut the front door. She said, that freaked me out, firstly. And then of course, she comes back into the room with a tray of artifacts, spearheads and a few other things and other tools that they use. But then she did one better. She goes and brings in a book that's a very, very thick book with the generations of Mayan and civilizations that have been there before. And so she says, have a look. and I'm flipping through the book, and I see the exact headdress and skirt that they were wearing, and the exact colors of those headdresses. It was two-tone. It was like an earth color and a sky blue, kind of that color. And that's in a particular arrangement on their headdresses and on their on the skirts, and I said, that's them. And they said, oh yeah, that was a particular era, and that's where the property was built on, and I just went, well, okay. All right, that just, to me, I'm sorry, that just says between that and the white feather, yeah, and there's one or two other incidences. I just went, yeah, there's so much more that we don't know that lives and breathes and exists around.
This brings Julian Lennon to talk about how he thinks that human eyes can only see so much. There could be so much more that exists, but we just simply have no clue. Joe Rogan says that you have to go back to the idea that at one point, eyes didn't exist. About 600 million years ago, simple organisms like single-celled bacteria had light-sensitive proteins that helped them detect light and dark. It wasn't until around 100 million years later that the first compound eyes and camera-style eyes appeared in early arthropods and vertebrates. Joe thinks the idea that eyes allow you to see, so therefore you are seeing everything, is ridiculous because before eyes existed, there was no perception. So why would we assume that this is all that our senses can interact with? Pretty freaky to think about. This can sort of be tied to the string theory, which is a theoretical framework in physics that suggests the universe has more than the 3 spatial dimensions that we perceive. According to the string theory, there may be up to 10 or 11 dimensions, with the extra ones being compactified and imperceptible to us. Also, some mystical traditions and esoteric philosophy philosophies suggest that higher dimensions exist beyond human sensory perception, inhabited by spiritual beings or alternate forms of consciousness. The Joe Rogan Experience number 1516, featuring Post Malone. During this podcast, Post Malone and Joe Rogan get into a discussion about ghosts, recalling ghost stories, and also talking about if ghosts are real or not. Later, they also discuss a theory on why places get haunted.
Here's the thing about ghosts. There's so many stories of them.
Right.
There's so many.
Right.
Now, is it because people are just scared and their senses are on heightened alert and they see things that aren't really there? That could be it. Because when it's dark out and you're tired and you're moving through the hallway, first of all, you might be half asleep anyway, but you hear things, you get scared, your senses get really heightened, and maybe you might see something that's not even really there.
What Joe Rogan is describing here is a phenomenon called peduncular hallucinosis. It's a rare neurological phenomenon that causes vivid visual hallucinations that typically occur in dark environments and last for several minutes. There's also something called complex nocturnal visual hallucinations, which is something similar, but this is used to describe the phenomenon of vivid, dramatic, detailed, and often intricate visual hallucinations occurring during sleep onset or awakenings at night. These generally last for a few minutes at most and disappear with increased levels of light. So Joe isn't trying to argue that ghosts aren't real. He's just explaining that a lot of ghost stories occur when it's dark. So these two phenomena could explain why a lot of supernatural things are seen when it's dark, meaning that some people who have claimed to see ghosts have actually just been hallucinating.
It's just your own brain and your paranoia with you, because it's always happening at night under low light conditions. It's always weird things that are fleeting and then they're gone.
But it's not always in the night.
Yourself.
It's not always in the night.
It's always in the dark though, right? You're never like at the beach Is there ghosts at the beach?
There might be ghosts at the beach.
That's
It
why I
depends
think
on
they're
what
bullshit.
beach you're at.
There's no ghosts at the beach.
Now, Joe Rogan is actually wrong here. There are a few beaches around the world that are deemed haunted. One, for instance, the Dumas Beach in India, is very well known for its black sand and its reputation for being haunted. Local folklore claims that the beach is possessed by spirits of people cremated there in the past. It apparently was once a Hindu burial ground. Many visitors have heard disembodied whispers, sudden chills, and inexplicable sand movements. But again, most of these stories say that it's only haunted during the night. So is it really haunted, or is it just people who have been hallucinating?
Here's an argument for something being haunted: the comedy store in Hollywood, because it used to be Ciro's nightclub. It used to be owned by Bugsy Siegel, and apparently the word is they killed a bunch of people there.
Right.
And almost everyone that I know that works there, everyone who's managed it, works there a long time, they have some weird shit happen to them. Weird shit. Like they see someone in the kitchen and they go to say something to them, they turn around and then they turn back again, the person's gone.
Right.
Like weird.
Right.
Like old friends you haven't seen in forever wandering through the hall.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can do whatever you want.
Through the hallway and they go up the stairs and then you can't find them. There's like a bunch of stories like that. Now, granted, there's a lot of people who've done a lot of drugs at the Comedy Store.
Right.
That has to be factored in.
Right.
Joe Rogan is referring to the Comedy Store in West Hollywood. The Comedy Store is a famous comedy club that opened in the 1970s, but the building was built in the 1930s. It was originally a nightclub, and it's said that the mafia used to be involved with the business. Now, there's an author who used to be a waitress at the Comedy Store who claims that the Comedy Store is haunted from basement to the rafters. The author has previously told stories about her paranormal encounters. She claims that each night before they opened, all of the waitresses would set up the tables. You know, they would put on tablecloths, ashtrays, glasses, etc. And she said that there were many times where a waitress would set the table, would leave for a little bit, they would come back to the table, and the tablecloth would be taken off the table and sitting there folded. Not to mention, most comedians who have performed at the Comedy Store all have their own paranormal encounters.
There's so many stories worldwide of ghosts. I don't think it's impossible I think it's possible that things leave a memory, right? Like maybe if you hate someone so much, like you leave a memory on the space. Like
That's a stone tape theory.
Yeah. The what? Stone tape?
Yeah.
Stone tape?
Yeah.
What is
that? That the energy of a life is like left on material shit.
Right.
The bricks on the wall.
Yeah.
Or the curtain here.
Right.
You know, I don't know if that's a stone tape theory. Don't quote me on that.
Never
Can you
heard
look up the stone tape theory for me?
Stone tape.
Post Malone refers to the stone tape theory to try and explain why people say that places have memories. It's a common phrase that paranormal investigators use. For example, for a haunted house, they could say that the house holds memories, or the walls hold memories. Now, the stone tape theory is a pseudo-scientific idea that ghosts and hauntings occur when historical information is released from objects such as rocks. It suggests that certain materials like limestone, quartz, and other stones can store information about historical events. When the information is released, it can cause a residual haunting, which is when the past event is quote-unquote replayed in the present. The theory also suggests that building materials can absorb energy and then replay it at a later time. So for example, if someone was murdered in a house, the building materials absorbed that energy, and then at some point that energy was replayed from the building materials, deeming the house haunted.
I'm friends with Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures, right?
Oh.
And it's like,
Did he ever take you to a haunted house?
we did a whole episode. You should check it
Did you
out.
get scared?
It's terrifying. It's terrifying, man. And in his museum, so apparently there's a thing called the Dybbuk box, which is one of the most haunted items in the world, apparently. And he wanted to, so we took the glass case off of the Dybbuk box, which is in his museum in Vegas. And he thought it was a sick ass idea to put the ashes of a lady who died while she was possessed on top.
Whoa.
And then my plane almost crashed. I was in a car accident. my house got robbed and I had bite marks on my arm.
The Dybbuk box is an antique wine cabinet that is claimed to be haunted by a Dybbuk, or an evil spirit. The story goes that a man named Kevin Mannis purchased an old wine cabinet from the granddaughter of a recently deceased Holocaust survivor named Havela, who escaped Nazi-occupied Poland. Havela's parents, brothers, sister, husband, 2 sons, and daughter were all killed. She, with other survivors, fled to Spain and lived there until the end of the war. When Havela, who lived to 103, immigrated to the United States, the wine cabinet was only one of 3 items that she brought with her. As Mannis paid for the cabinet, Havela's granddaughter said, "I see you bought the Dybbuk box." Mannis wasn't familiar with the term. The granddaughter told him her grandmother always kept it shut and out of reach because there was a Dybbuk, which in Jewish folklore is an evil, restless spirit that possesses the living. The seller purportedly told Mannis it to never be opened, and if it was, bad things would happen. Now, Mannis bought this box and gave it to his mother, Ida. Ida described feeling a cold breeze from the box as she opened its doors, then experiencing pure evil coming out when she opened it. She says she immediately then had a stroke.
He hit the wall like I've never seen someone in fear so hard as whenever he touched it. And it's I don't know if it's someone who's dead or if it's a demon or if it's something dimensional, but it's something there that goes bump in the night, I suppose.
Joe Rogan Experience number 1947, featuring Chris DiStefano. Now, Joe and Chris get into a long discussion about serial killers, particularly Son of Sam and Ted Bundy. Now, apparently, Chris DiStefano's mother's friend had an encounter with Ted Bundy when she was around 19 years old. Now, for some reason you don't know who Ted Bundy was, he was an American serial killer who kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered numerous young women during the 1970s. He was known for his charm and intelligence, which he used to lure victims. Bundy escaped from custody twice before being recaptured and ultimately convicted of multiple murders. In 1989, he was executed in the electric chair in Florida after confessing to killing at least 30 women, though the true number remains unknown.
My mom had a friend, right? Grew up in Utah. Maybe she's 18, 19 years old, I don't know, whatever year, 70s, 80s, whatever. Goes on a date with a guy, right? Normal date, just met him, I think at the supermarket. Goes on a date with this guy, and she's at the table with him, and she feels very like a ominous feeling looking at this man. She's like, I'm looking at him and I can see like there's nothing behind his eyes. Like there's just something that I don't like about this guy.
Now, this woman had such a bad feeling about this guy that she was on a date with that she went into the bathroom and called her brother. She told her brother that he needed to come pick her up ASAP because she had just such an eerie feeling about this guy that she was on a date with. So she hid in the bathroom until her brother came and picked her up.
And she was like, I'm just creeped out by this guy. I can't explain it. I'm creeped out. All this energy, I'm creeped out. Now, this man had picked her up from her house. So the brother had a paper route. He's leaving the next morning at 5 a.m., sees some ruffling in the bushes, okay? Crazy, right? Like whatever, sees a guy running out of the bushes, says, holy shit, whatever, runs back in the house, tells his mom and dad, sister wakes up, says he was wearing like a beige jacket. She's like, that's the guy I was on a date with. Like that, he was like waiting, he must have been like waiting for me, right?
Being a content creator can feel like you've always got to be on, always live. It's overwhelming. So stream smarter. Upload your video to Restream and we'll stream it live.